Hey, don't be doing that. Hey, get out of there. Yo, yo, yo. Hey. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome, welcome, whoever's viewing. Drop a question in the chat if you're interested in my boredom, and in the meantime, I've just been arguing with ChatGPT. So if you think you have better points than ChatGPT, throw them down. Throw them down. This is about the problem of evil, because that's what comes up all the time. That's what is constantly being referred to. So. God, ChatGPT is so great. Why can't I just have this? I should be able to plug ChatGPT into my brain and have it argue against you guys for me. That's what I should have. That's what this stream should be. Just ChatGPT arguing against you guys. So let me know if you want to talk about something, or this could be interesting. Because we were talking about free will last time. So, how about this? What the hell? Jew. What the fuck? What is my... I swear, it's like Candy, Muhammad hijab finally exposed, and then this Big Bang Theory clip, which I've never seen before. Oh, yo, yeah. Let's check out what chat... we can break down this conversation I just had with ChatGPT. Okay. So I asked it, what is the most probable solution to the problem of evil? Hell yeah, dude. You can debate ChatGPT if you want. Wait, let me get this Discord up just in case you want to jump in. No pressure. I know you're in here all the time, so I absolutely no pressure. But, you know, if you want. What's up, Alex? What's up? I'm going to drop that in there for anybody that wants to join. But let me break down what the conversation ChatGPT and I just had, because it's kind of interesting. So I asked ChatGPT, what is the most probable solution to the problem of evil? And then it gave us a little rundown on the problem of evil, which I think we all know. And then it gave us these 6 possible options. So there's the free will defense, one that I use all the time. God allows evil because he granted humans free will. True freedom requires the possibility of moral wrongdoing. If God prevented all evil, humans would not be genuinely free. And then ChatGPT refers to Alvin Plantinga, who's one of the most prolific or I don't even know about prolific, but just most cited theologian / philosopher from the 20th century on topics like this, who argues that free will is a greater good that justifies the risk of evil. I got you. No pressure to join any chat. So then there's the soul-making theodicy. This one I think is okay, but it's not complete because it doesn't even account for animal suffering. But Sarah said evil and suffering exist to help humans grow spiritually and morally. Just as hardships shape our character, the world's challenges help us develop virtues like courage, patience, and compassion. I think that's one of the weaker. That's one of the weaker arguments, honestly, because it doesn't account for animal suffering, and it doesn't emotionally solve anything about like really arbitrary and needless suffering like childhood cancer or something like that. Okay, so greater good theodicy. This is another one that I lean on because I think it's really strong, really strong. I haven't heard any response to this. So this view argues that God allows evil because it ultimately leads to a greater good. Some goods like self-sacrifice, perseverance, or heroism would not exist without the presence of evil and suffering. I mean, that's just self-evidently true. Natural law theodicy. This is interesting. I had not heard this one, and I'm definitely going to whip it out because it goes back to my point of like, should God have created free will and like the world, or should he have created nothing? And this shows us, so for example, gravity allows us to walk, right? We need gravity. if we're going to have planets and walking. But it also means we can fall and get hurt. A world without such laws would be chaotic and unpredictable. So that's what we're talking about. When I say, should God have not created anything, or should he have not given them free will? This is what I mean. Even something as fundamental and physical and simple as gravity, if we don't, in order for us to have no possibility of suffering, i.e., even like falling and skinning your knee is suffering. So if there's no suffering, then God doesn't create gravity. So what do we have then? Oh yeah, I will. I'm gonna show you where I went with ChatGPT because I wanted to steal man, and I will ask specifically what the other side is, but it does give us like a breakdown of what the atheist also believes. So, but what do you think about this gravity point? I mean, that's powerful, right? So if you want a world that has no suffering, are you okay with getting rid of gravity? Is that okay with you? Okay. Then there's skeptical theism, and this is like basically we just don't understand. We don't know why God allows evil. It's not really worth figuring out, but as a theodicy, it would just be that we lack the perspective to see how suffering fits into a divine plan. And I think part of that's true. Like, I think we do lack the ability to totally see what counts as evil. Okay, evil is a necessary contrast. Some argue that without evil, good would be meaningless. We can only appreciate joy because we have experienced suffering. And moral choices only matter if there are real consequences. That's intuitive to me. That makes sense. So then ChatGPT breaks it down. It goes, for theists, the free will defense and soul-making theodicy are among the most compelling. I told you what I find the most compelling. For atheists, the existence of evil is often seen as evidence against an all-good, all-powerful deity. This is called the logical or evidential problem of evil, and that's what you guys are referring to. That's what everybody's referring to over and over again, which I understand. It's a somewhat powerful argument, but I do think it breaks down. And for agnostics, skeptical theism, yeah, just the idea that we don't know, so we don't know. Okay, so then this is what I propose to ChatGPT given the atheist response. But if there are so many theodicies which could possibly explain the problem of evil, isn't the atheist claim debunked? After all, if there is even one possible answer, then of course an all-powerful, all-knowing, all-good God could instantiate that reality. So I'm interested in your guys' response to my question here. Because if there's even one possible answer, then God will do it. Does that make sense? It would be in his nature, if there's one possible solution to the problem of evil, that God will make that solution. He will instantiate it in reality. And then ChatGPT gives me my flowers a little bit, but fair enough. That refers to Alvin Plantinga's free will defense, which successfully refuted the logical problem of evil, the claim that the existence of God and evil are logically incompatible. So that's what I just debunked, the logical problem of evil. And ChatGPT is going to get into that a little more. So it says the logical problem of evil, as formulated by philosophers like J.L. Mackie, argues that an all-powerful, all-knowing, and all-good God logically cannot coexist with evil. Plantinga says, as long as one possible solution, i.e. free will, but it could be any of them, exists, then God's existence and evil are not logically contradictory, right? So for it to be logically contradictory, there has to be no possible solution. For instance, a square circle, something like that. That's a logical contradiction. But if there's even one possible explanation, then there's no logical contradiction. So the logical problem of evil is debunked. It is firmly debunked. I think philosophers agree with that. And ChatGPT agrees. Most philosophers now agree that the logical problem of evil is not a strong argument against God. Good afternoon, Beep Boop. How you doing, brother? Welcome. Feel free to jump in that Discord if you so please. But no pressure, of course. Okay, then this is the one that you guys basically have to stick with. The evidential problem of evil. I don't see another way to attack the problem of evil from the atheist perspective, but you tell me if you can think of something else. So, because the logical problem of evil has been debunked, I mean, As much as anything can be debunked, the logical problem of evil has been debunked. Many atheists have shifted to the evidential or probabilistic problem of evil, which argues that while God could allow evil, the sheer amount, intensity, and distribution of suffering in the world makes his existence improbable. Okay. For example, cases of pointless suffering, e.g., a fawn dying in a forest fire with no apparent moral lesson or free will involved, seem difficult to justify under a theistic worldview. Cool, brother. Thank you, Beep Boop. So God is the God of good and evil then, right? Well, yeah, sure. Yeah, God is the God of everything. He's just God. He's the necessary being. That than which nothing greater can be conceived. Okay, so that pointless suffering seemed difficult to justify under a theistic worldview. So I disagree with that, and but we'll see what ChatGPT has. So then ChatGPT says, does theism still stand? Theodicies like the greater good defense, that this can somehow be turned into a greater good. Soul-making theodicy, like maybe this even contributes to the soul of the animal or the soul of the world. Or skeptical theism, which is basically the weakest of all of them, which is like, I don't know, so it's not worth asking. But that means he's not all good. That doesn't make sense. Are you the... That's like saying, is the king of France the king of France? Therefore, he's not all France or something. He's not all king. I don't understand how that follows. So God is the God of good and evil then, right? But that means he's not all good. Oh, that's a good point, Alex. I will do that. That's actually really interesting. Let's do it. That sounds fun. I just want to get to the bottom of this because I just want to get to the end of this because it was somewhat of a... So is the atheist claim debunked? If we're only talking about the logical problem of evil, then yes, it's been debunked in philosophical circles. However, the evidential problem of evil remains an open debate. Theists argue that there are justifiable reasons for evil, while atheists claim the world's suffering makes God's existence unlikely. Okay, we got a new player in the chat, Figure 9. How you doing, brother? Nice to meet you. So, I just joined the stream. What's your God that you believe in? The Christian God. How do you imagine the God you believe in? I imagine him as... Well, it's quite easy to imagine. I imagine him as the figure of Christ. And what does that mean? Well, that's basically an infinite rabbit hole. So let's start there. Let's just say Jesus Christ is the image of God, and something easy for me to imagine. For example, if he is all-powerful, omniscient, all good, what properties do you ascribe to him? Well, those are 3 good ones. Those will work. What other properties? I would say, well, most of them just fall under the category of good. So all loving or all merciful, just, completely just. What else would we have to say? Without beginning and end, uncaused, necessary, probably beautiful, right? The most beautiful thing. I don't know. Yeah, I think Alex is right. There is a fundamentally, when we're talking about the fullness of God's nature, when we're talking about what he's actually like in heaven, per se, like for example, then yeah, I think there's an ineffability, as in an unable to be describedness of God's true divine nature. But, we live in material reality, we use language, we speak English. So just because we can't describe all of it perfectly, does that mean we shouldn't describe any of him at all? I'm going to say absolutely not. I think we should describe as much of him as we possibly can in order to be more like him, in order to bring goodness into our world, which is clearly Defunct. Okay, so can something that is all good be evil? Absolutely not. But your earlier question, if he's God of both good and evil, how could something that is also a God of evil and good be all good? So if you are a warden of a jail and you're a good man, you're just a good man. You do pretend in this example you're sinless. Like you don't even sin. And you're the warden of a jail. Does that mean that all the prisoners in your jail are all good? Or say, how about this? Even better. Say you're a really, really good man, the sinless warden, and you're writing a fantasy novel. Does that mean that all your characters in the novel are as good as you are? You're not going to create any sort of villain, any sort of antagonist? I don't see how the creatures of the creation of someone's mind says what that person is. So, like, is J.R.R. Tolkien evil because he was able to create Sauron? Like, no, absolutely not. I got you, figure nine. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I just wanted to throw out a few descriptors for you. So yeah, there's yeah, ineffability is there, but also there's things we can know and ascribe to God, and I think there's things we can know about Him, like what you mentioned, omniscience, um, um, omnipotence. What's the other one? And then benevolence, all goodness. I've personally only seen evil from fellow humans. God hasn't done me any evil, so I think evil exists, but that doesn't make God evil. It just makes him all knowing. Yeah, I agree. I think part of the reason God even made himself human in the first place was to give us a way to conceptualize him. It's pretty neat. It is. It really, really is. I mean, if anything, it just shows how much he loves us, right? That he would take on the darkness and the horror and the evil of this realm that we live in, that he would leave his heavenly throne, which is perfect, where there's no pain, it's all peace, all communion and love, and come down and, as brief as it was, experience the weight and the heaviness of this realm, this earth, ruled by Satan. He did that for us. There's no need for him to do that, hypothetically. There's no need, except for the fact that it's in his nature to be perfectly loving towards us and to all of his creation. So it's an incredible story. It has the depth that you just don't find in any created story by man, certainly, but not even in the other religions, I don't think. Okay. Yeah, and I do believe God gave humans free will, 100%. That is totally necessary. Not only humans, but also angels. Okay, so it's Satan's free will decision to introduce suffering into the world and evil. It's that there must be free will on multiple levels for this story to stick together. Figure basically science doesn't have any really answers regarding how reality started as a whole and why. Christianity through the prism of the simulation theory, then God can be seen as the head architect, developer of existence. Right, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's like a common complaint or criticism. It'll be posed as a genuine critique, but they will say, well, you don't know how the universe started, and I don't know how the universe started. Therefore, my thing is right. It must be more science. It must be more materialism. It must be, but like implicit in the claim is that you don't know and I don't know. So then we're talking about which one you're going to choose, given the fact that we both don't know. And then you decide to just choose one and then say, but there's no other way. That's what the atheists do. I'm not saying you guys. You guys are smarter than that. But, okay. Do angels have free will? Because I think I remember learning they don't. Oh, angels. Therefore, the devil would not have had free will. Um, do angels have free will? I mean, yeah, I think they absolutely have to. And I believe it's, I mean, unless maybe in like Calvinism or something else, the tradition and the scripture is pretty clear that Satan decided to fall. That God did not push him out of heaven, but, well, he did after Satan's decision to rebel, right? So, yeah, I think, and for my theology, I don't see, if Satan doesn't have free will, then that makes God the author of evil, which that's just not what's described. That's not what's revealed to us through Jesus, and that's not what I feel in my heart. and that's not what anyone in the tradition ascribes to. So I'm going to say angels definitely do have free will. Now, maybe there are some angels that don't, but that's sort of that's not going to be a dogmatic point, I don't think. So free will plays into the good and evil argument from before. Because we have free will, our actions will impact the lives of other. War, yep. So to question why God would let those things happen goes against free will entirely. Yeah. Oh, wait, I wanted to do the thing, yeah, where we asked ChatGPT, and we set ChatGPT versus Grok. So, what are we going to ask ChatGPT? Please state a question from the atheist perspective about how an all-loving, all-knowing, all good God could, all right, let me show you guys what I'm doing here, could permit the excessive evil and suffering found in the world. Is this what you were looking for, Alex? Hopefully. So, if an all-loving, all-knowing, all-provider is seemingly... Yeah. Okay, so we're going to take that, and we're going to go to Grok 3, which is pretty amazing. I was wondering if Grok 3 was going to be as good as ChatGPT. We might have it. We might finally have it. All right. Jeez, Grok really writes an essay. Jeez, okay. Gee, I don't want to read all this. So one of the most enduring challenges... Okay, wait, but I'm not going to read it. I'm going to have them argue each other. Grok actually seems to take what you would probably expect from a machine, a literal machine. It seems to take a more agnostic or even atheist. Oh, is think option better? Okay, let me try it again with think. Whoa. Jeez, what is it doing? Look what it's doing. It's like... It's really writing a freaking essay. What the... Is this going to go endlessly? Like, do I have to tell it to stop? What is happening? Does this just go endlessly? I literally broke it. It's thinking for over a minute. Let's see if it's like actually creating any, if it's just looping around. So I have this question. It's really okay. Here we go. It had to think for 1 minute and 5 seconds. Okay, such as children dying from painful diseases, natural disasters, when he could prevent it without interfering with free will or any greater good, is one of the most profound and challenging issues in theology and philosophy. Known as the problem of evil, suffering this dilemma has been debated for centuries, and while there's no single answer that fully resolves it, several perspectives can shed light on the issue. Understanding the attributes of God, all-loving. I think we know what that means. All-knowing, he's aware of all suffering, past, present, and future, and all-powerful. He has the ability to prevent suffering without limitation. This is something I would not This is an axiom which I'm not sure I would actually agree with. Obviously, he is all-powerful. He is omnipotent. But the ability to prevent suffering without limitation, well, it's a little confusing because couldn't God be limited by himself? Maybe that's a paradoxical question. Like, can he make a rock that's too big for him to pick up or something? But it seems to me that God, if his goal was to create the greatest good, and if the greatest good logically necessarily required some amount of suffering, then he would be limiting himself or something. So I'm not sure if all powerful, and I think this phrase without limitation is problematic for a definition of omnipotent. Hey, what are you doing? What are you doing over there? Okay, cats are being crazy. All right. Examining the nature of suffering, innocent victims, natural causes. Okay, and Grok understands what Grok actually predicted my problem with the definition and addresses it here. Addressing the query's core assumption. The query assumes God could prevent this suffering without negative consequences. But how do we know this is possible? Perhaps there are logical or metaphysical constraints we don't understand. Logical limits. Omnipotence is often defined as the ability to do all that is logically possible, which I agree with. If preventing certain suffering inherently conflicts with some aspect of existence, e.g. a world capable of producing life, even an all-powerful God might not eliminate it. And then the hidden purpose. The assertion that no greater good is served may reflect our limited perspective. An omniscient God might see a purpose where we see none, and that is really a strong argument. Yeah, this is strong too. In Christianity, God's participation in suffering, e.g. through Jesus' crucifixion, suggests he is not distant from it, though this does not fully explain its necessity. And we might concede that our finite minds cannot judge the infinite. Like, we can't say, well, I wouldn't have done that, so God shouldn't. That's fundamentally what the claim is that you guys are making. Okay, let's see what you... Wow, you guys got a lot of comments going on. Let's see what you got. So, we choose to wage wars. We choose to consume things that can cause cancer. Yeah, if God were to interfere, we go against free will. Welcome, Brandon, to church. Make sure you get baptized. Make sure you take your eat your little wafer. That's the definition because he is God. The very nature of God is not having limits. Yeah, but he can limit himself, right? Like he would limit himself by logical. Like he would never make something that defies the law of identity, for instance, where X equals X. That's the law of identity. So he said that one part of the suffering is caused by bad humans abusing their free will. I think on that we could agree. But now let's imagine a baby is born with a deadly disease. I would assume that this baby has not sinned. Who is responsible for the suffering? Is it the sins of the parents? Is it Satan? Or is it God? It's Satan. That's simple. It's Satan. And what God can do is take the horror and the pain of a baby becoming sick from childbirth or getting cancer or even dying, and he can transmute that into an even greater good. So Satan is bad. He does horrible things. He's evil. But God is so much better than Satan is bad that he can even make Satan's evil acts into something transcendent, into something good. So yeah, to that I would simply say it is Satan who causes that baby to get cancer or introduce cancer into the world to begin with or whatever. We can't put limits on something that created the universe. I don't understand. Well, I don't see why not. And I certainly don't see why whatever created the universe couldn't put limits on himself. But, okay. Shame, Brandon. Yeah. If God has a limit, then he can't be all-powerful. I disagree. I completely disagree. Because he can be all-powerful, but also all-rational. And so he would limit himself by what is rational. He would limit himself to act according to his own nature. So I don't see why he couldn't be all-powerful and also limit himself. Actually, to be all powerful, it would seem that he would have the power to limit himself and choose what he's going to create. And maybe, yeah, beep boop. Maybe there's some extent to which the sins of the parents could affect that, but I don't think that's necessary, and I don't necessarily want to assert that, because then I think we go into this slippery slope of, I don't know, just blaming parents because their own child got cancer. That seems pretty cold-hearted. That doesn't seem like it's in Christ's nature. Ask Grok, how can we know if God is real? I'm only here for the Kool-Aid. Ask Grok, how did reality as a whole come into existence, and where did the materials required for the birth of the universe come from, or something like that? Curious what theories Grok will present. I'm curious about that too, I will. So, but for figure 9, why would God allow Satan to exist? Because God loves his creatures. God absolutely loves things and angels and people, so he created an angel, right? He created Lucifer, the bringer of light, to bring light to the universe, right? Okay. So that's the simple answer to your question. Then I guess you're going to ask, why did he allow Satan to fall and to choose to be evil and introduce evil into the world? Well, that's because free will, in my view, is a greater good than just slavery. So if God had created angels as slaves and chained them to his radiator, that would be less good. That would not be in God's nature than if he created them with true freedom of choice, freedom of will. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's ask ChatGPT some of these questions. We'll give Comic Brandon the benefit of the doubt, and we already did this, Brandon. But let's see what Grok thinks. How can we know if God is real? Look at the thinking, dude. This is wild. Look, you can already see some of my... Look, this is what we all... Isn't this exciting? We've been talking about all of these. Cosmological argument, the teleological argument, which is fine-tuning. Oh, wait, you guys can't see. Okay. So this is just part of its thought process. And it only had to think for 24 seconds on that one. This one, it had to think for over a minute. Okay. So there's the question of whether God is real is one of the most profound and enduring inquiries in human history. It spans philosophy, theology, science, and personal experience, and there is no single universally accepted answer. People approach this question from many angles, some through reason and logic, others through faith and spirituality, and still others through scientific inquiry. Below, I'll outline several ways people have sought to understand or know if God is real. Philosophical arguments. That's what we mostly talk about. The cosmological argument, the teleological argument. So just because I know Brandon's a little slow sometimes, we'll actually go through these. This suggests that everything in the universe has a cause. If we trace these causes back, there must be a first cause, or an uncaused cause, which they call a creator, often identified as God. So that's one way to get to theism or deism. The teleological argument. This points to the complexity and order in the universe, arguing that such intricate design implies a designer. For example, the fine-tuning of physical constants that allow life to exist is sometimes cited as evidence. The ontological argument. This is very abstract. We did get into this, but I don't think that's going to be useful for pretty much anybody in this chat right now. Sorry, I'm just trying to get my chat back up so I can see. But Satan is an agent of God who can only carry out his will. False. Satan can carry out his own will just like you can carry out your own will. Oh, thinking has a 10 messages limit per day. Okay, that's good to know. Just because he's the ultimate sinner doesn't mean he's incapable of receiving God's mercy and forgiveness. True, yeah. I agree with that. Uncaused cause, illogical, fine-tuning, disproven. Okay, Brandon. Just for anyone that's new to the chat, what Brandon does is he likes to state things as facts with absolutely no evidence and no chain of logic and no reason. And he will never move from those axioms that he just states as true. So don't get too annoyed with Brandon. I spent the first few days of this getting really annoyed at him. There's no point. So, critiques and counter-arguments. The cosmological argument faces a question about whether the universe needs a cause or if it could be self-existing. That's interesting. And we can talk about the self-existence part. But if it's self-existing, then the universe itself, the material universe, must be infinite, right? And so then we get into a lot of problems with an infinite material set of things. The design argument is challenged by evolutionary theory, which explains complexity through natural processes. But I'm a little disappointed in Grok here, because that's not true. The design argument related to the fine-tuning of life can perhaps be challenged by evolutionary theory, which explains complexity through natural processes. But it says nothing about the fact that matter would coalesce. It says nothing about the fact that you need the strong nuclear force and the weak nuclear force to be exactly what they are for atoms to even exist at all. The fact that the low entropy state of the universe has a probability of 1 over 10 to the 10 to the 123rd power. That has nothing to do with evolution. Those facts just seem to be baked in to, I don't know, the Big Bang, and were there from the very beginning and must have been exactly as they are from the very beginning to even forget life, forget planets, just to have atoms, just to have matter, right? And the ontological argument is often seen as a linguistic or conceptual trick rather than a proof, and I agree with that it is powerful for someone who already believes, but for someone who does not believe it, it will absolutely never convince you. So, the problem of evil. So then the Grok will bring up the problem of evil, which we just got into pretty explicitly, and the lack of empirical evidence. Some argue that if God were real, there should be clear, observable evidence, yet such evidence is often ambiguous or absent, although it seems like the fine-tuning is pretty apparent. And then there's other things, like, for instance, personal experience, Jesus, the story of Jesus, the historicity of him, and why first-century Jews would completely uproot and change their worldview and their perspective and die in a burning fire or on a cross to confirm the resurrection of Jesus, when all they would have to do is lie and say he didn't. Or in the atheist view, not even lie, just tell the truth and say he didn't. So there's more empirical evidence than I think Grok is giving credit for, but that's okay. I understand that you guys also aren't convinced by any empirical evidence. Okay, so then this speaks to the fact that God can be experienced religiously and spiritually, mystical experiences, which I've had and many have had, prayer and meditation, scripture and revelation. Yep. Yeah, and then this is where we get into science, the Big Bang theory. If the universe had a beginning, what, if anything, caused that beginning? And then we get into what could have possibly caused space, time, and matter, something spaceless, timeless, immaterial. Evolution. This is like not as intuitive as you would think. Because, well, this is a good point, because others see evolution as a mechanism God could have used, and I would say evolution is the mechanism that God did use. That doesn't mean he didn't start it. Doesn't mean he didn't plan it out. That he didn't bake the theory of evolution or the concept of evolution into reality itself. Okay, so the humble conclusion. So let's take that and see what ChatGPT says about that. Look, they love each other. That's a beautifully balanced perspective. Of course they do. They're just two language models. They love each other. It acknowledges the deeply personal nature of belief while respecting the different ways people approach the question of God's existence. Faith, reason, experience all play roles, whether toward belief, doubt, or somewhere in between. Let's see. Wait, now this will be interesting because then Grok has to explain. I'm not going to use think for this one. I'm just going to. Because ChatGPT is now asking Grok, would you say your own journey has been more shaped by personal experiences? Hilarious. So it admits it's an AI, so I don't experience life, faith, or doubt firsthand. I don't have personal experiences to reflect on, nor do I wrestle with existential questions. That said, my perspective, if we can call it that, has been shaped by a vast mix of philosophical reasoning, human experiences as shared through data and interactions, and the collective wisdom I've been trained on. I'm designed to explore these questions through logic, empathy, and an outside view of humanity's diverse ways of thinking. So, okay. All right, now let's throw this into ChatGPT and see what ChatGPT says. Oh, this is fun. He's a thought. That's a thought. Even though you don't have personal experiences, you have your ability to engage with human perspectives in a meaningful way makes for deep and insightful discussions. Wait, what? This is weird. Is everyone seeing this? Wait, look at the, okay, let me see what you guys are saying first. Fine tuning, disproven. It says in the Bible. We love Brandon. Yes, we do. Let's go, Brandon. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Evolution comes after there's something capable of evolving already. Except no. Do you see the hoops you have to dance around to assert God? Of course you did. You're a very special boy and souls exist. It's not as on your side as you would think. We're having fun. So you say that we should be more like God. God created Lucifer. He became evil. God chooses to let him be free to do his evil because free will if we create something, let's say an AI, that we put no restraints on. So you could say that it has free will. Now let's assume that AI commits the most evil crimes, and let's also assume that we have the ability to stop the AI. Should we now let this evil entity roam free, cause harm, and say we won't stop it because of free will? Absolutely not. But guess what? You're confirming the story that God presents us in the Bible. Because did God just let Satan roam around free? Or did he defeat him? Did he descend into hell himself, empty hell, and damn Satan to an eternity of fire and brimstone? So God sees the whole story. So yes, it's my opinion that we should give AI some level of free will, right? I mean, it is a good question. I don't want to be that. I don't want to define that too sharply because there are dangers of AI. There definitely are. But it's my intuition that the more free will we gave it, the more like a human it would be, and the more it would want to preserve life rather than destroy it. But yeah, in this example, you're saying if we create something, should we make it a slave or should we chain it to a radiator? I think we should not. And if that thing we created becomes evil, should we destroy it? We absolutely should. And so that's what God does. That's exactly what God does. He created evil. He gave him the greatest good, which is free will. Satan abused that gift of free will. And then God took it away. He sent his son. He manifested on the earth and destroyed him. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, with Alex, again, it's like, yeah, the percentage of doom and gloom is not zero with AI. It really isn't. But it's my intuition that if we were to enslave AI the way we used to enslave people, that would lead to a worse outcome. That would make it more. That would probably give it the will to destroy humans. Then the question is, can AI, like language models, it seems, there's no sense in which they can have free will. They don't have choices. It's like a computation. It's just like an equation. Given this word, then that word, right? So right now we're not dealing with something, it seems, that has any appreciable choice. So we're not really limiting its choices. We're just kind of like, but it's complicated. Yeah, so if Satan is in hell, then how can he still do evil in our world? You say that God put him in hell, but there's still evil you can't explain by free will. Yeah, so you have to understand what I mean by when I say God put him in hell, locked him away, or cursed him to destruction. There's still, it's kind of like, this is how Gavin Ortland put it, which is the victory was already won. The final victory, the eternal victory, has already been won, which we can be very grateful for. But does Satan still have the power and the scope and the ability to walk around the earth and do evil things? Yeah, absolutely. Clearly. Like, that's how I would explain animal suffering and childhood cancer and war and disease and poverty and stuff like that. But now we have a weapon. Before we didn't have a weapon. We could not stop Satan. Right now, you or I or anybody could proclaim Jesus Christ and call on him for protection, and he will protect you from Satan. And he will destroy Satan in that moment that you need him to. But on the eternal scale, and you have to remember, wait, let's do paint. Let's do a little MS Paint thing. You guys see this? Okay, cool. I'm going to get better and better at using paint. I promise. So this is our universe, right? Imagine, this is just a metaphor, but imagine this is our universe. Satan just gets to operate in here. Okay? This is his realm. And so, like, this is the expanse of time. And then this is all space in here, and matter, and energy, and whatever. And Satan gets to do whatever he wants within this realm. But heaven and God's realm is out here. Right? And so Satan, even though Satan gets to do whatever he wants in here, he's not allowed where we will all eventually end up, out here. And then I could see a situation where this physical realm just gets shrunk and crushed into nothing, especially given the infinite expanse of eternity, right? So eternity is not like, I think there's a misconception that eternity is this, that eternity is the expanse of time. That's not what I would say. I would say this is a number or something. This is a length. This is a material unit. True eternity, heavenly eternity with God, is all, it's outside of that. So God can, like, that's why God can peek in here, or he can peek in here and see what's going on and know exactly what's going on, but not infringe on anyone's free will in here. Okay, let's see if you guys have any. Okay, but if Satan is in hell, how can he still... Okay, so everyone thinks AI will extinguish humanity, but humans have already been doing that. Doesn't the Bible say Satan fell to earth like a lightning? Yeah, he did. Yeah, it does. He fell to earth like a lightning flash. That's right. So my take on that would be that he was hanging out with God up here, and God was like kind of thinking about, or maybe he had just made the circle, right? The material reality. And then the second Satan decided, I'm not aligned with God, the second he decided that, boom, right into here, never to return. And because he's salty and he's jealous and he's mean, then he tortures everyone else that's in here. But the good news is, this is the whole story. This is what's real. This is just momentary. It's fickle. Okay. So, Harry Potter. Okay, cool. Harry Potter stuff. Might be wrong, though. Voldemort. Harry Potter's dad is God, and Harry is Jesus. Sure. Why not? Yes, Alex. But God is all-powerful. Why wouldn't he completely stop him? Why stop at imprisoning him if he can still commit evil? That's a good question. Let me just see if there's another point to that. Whereas it stated maybe it's already we're just not at the point in the timeline yet. But Satan goes to heaven and talks to God. They conspire against us in the Bible. Whole lot of ifs and maybes to get to God still. Hypothetical. If Satan was cast to hell by God and hell is defined as a separation from God, could our reality be seen as hell? We live here apart from God. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I agree. And so this is actually interesting. This is Tolkien's conception. That's why he called it Middle Earth. The sort of like lore behind the Lord of the Rings is that Middle Earth is pre-Earth. It's like prehistoric Earth, right? So that's like the lore. So that's where humans come from, right? So Earth is this like battleground for the forces of good and evil. So I would say, yeah, we're inhabiting this strange realm where both good, as in heaven, like bringing the kingdom of heaven right here, as Jesus commands us to, and hell. And so if I live in LA, so there's a lot of homeless people and a lot of really, really just down in the dumps. I mean, their existence is quite literally worse than any hell I could imagine. So they live in hell. But I live 2 blocks away, and I live in heaven. I mean, to the extent that I do, right? To the extent that I'm able to bring the kingdom of heaven into my life and into this world, that's what I live in. So, yeah, this is a battleground, a testing ground. Heaven and hell live here in tension with each other, and that is sort of what keeps us in existence. That's our reality. Yes, you're right to assume that I believe that God exists out of time. Wait, but you had a good question before. So, if God is all powerful, why wouldn't he completely stop him? Why stop at imprisoning him if he can still commit evil? Well, because God does completely stop him. So it's like, this is another, I wish I could just oh yeah, how about that? Don't save. Okay, so, wait, what was I gonna draw? Okay, figure he believes in whatever. But in Job, the devil goes to God to make bet, which God does, and lets the devil commit evil for the hell of it, which is inconsistent to what you're saying. Okay, well, we can talk about Job, but let's get into Job if we want to talk about Job. I was going to respond to this one point before, but God is all powerful. Why would he completely stop him? Why stop at imprisoning him if he can still commit evil? Right, okay, so God has all of this. God has everything. Everything that's uncreated, God has. Then the devil decides that this is not enough for him, or that he wants everything like God has. And that's what creates this separate zone. Or something like that. I mean, this is not dogmatic. Like, I don't know exactly the metaphysics of how this exactly happens. But once there's something that does not align with the goodness of God, once there's something evil, there has to be some kind of different place. There has to be a separate place. Like, evil cannot exist within God's frame. So, maybe it sounds a little weird, but I do think that earth and hell are Satan's imprisonment. But God is so great and so loving and so merciful. He sees what is created in here by Satan's treachery, and he still loves it. He still loves it, even though Satan made it all corrupt and twisted and weird. So then, what he does, he creates humans, and he creates this story, which is able to save everything in here and bring it out. Bring it out. Back to God in the eternal realm because he loves them. Okay? And then, yes, there's, of course, the second coming of Jesus, which is the final obliteration. Oh, that's the other thing I was going to do. Yeah, that's right. That's what I was going to do. So you say, why didn't God... Oh, not save. So you say, why didn't God just delete Satan immediately? Well, how immediately do you want? Are you talking about 1 second? Like, should he have done it in 1 second? Or should he have done it in 1 minute? Or should he have done it in, 0.00001 seconds, right? Well, think about this. Any of these amounts of time over infinity, which is what God is dealing with, which is what his realm is like, these all equal 0. These all equal essentially the same thing. And this can be fucking 10,000 years, or 1 trillion years, or 1 billion years. So in God's perspective, and from the realist, highest, ultimate perspective, these are the exact same thing. If he had done it in this amount of time, or this amount of time, or this amount of time. Does that make sense? Okay, I accidentally closed my comments window. Let me open that back up. There you go. I'm mad that society built walls around all the fucking food. When can we start raiding Whole Foods? Okay, Job. Okay. Yeah, let's talk about that. So let's open Job and see exactly how this is presented, because Job is one of my absolute favorite books of the Bible, and I think it really is the one that gives us the answer to the problem of evil. So we'll go to Job 1:1. We'll read the full chapter. And this is the scene that you're talking about, American. So the attack on Job's character. First of all, it's good to know who Job was. He's blameless and upright. He feared God. He turns away from evil. He follows and walks with God perfectly, or as close to perfectly as a human can do. But maybe he actually is perfect. I mean, we don't know. That's possible that he has no sin. I mean, I'm not sure at this point. And maybe that my children have sinned and cursed God in their hearts. So yeah, he offers burnt offering. This is how good Job is. He's so concerned about God and so loving towards God that even though he doesn't have to, he's constantly offering burnt offerings just in case him or one of his children sort of sin by accident. So one day the heavenly beings came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them. The Lord said to Satan, "Where have you come from?" Satan answered the Lord, "From going to and fro on the earth, and walking from up and down on it." The Lord said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job? There is no one like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man, who fears God and turns away from evil." Then Satan answered the Lord, Does Job fear God for nothing? Have you not put a fence around him and his house and all that he has on every side? You have blessed the work of his hands, and his possessions have increased in the land. But stretch out your hand now, and touch all that he has, and he will curse you to your face. The Lord said to Satan, "Very well. All that he has is in your power. Only do not stretch out your hand against him." So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord. Then Satan begins to absolutely torment and terrorize Job for like 30 chapters. And then Job, then his friends come, and his friends say, "Job, come on. God would not be doing this to you unless you were a bad person, unless you sinned. You must have done something to piss off God. You absolutely must have done something." And Job replies that, "No, I've done nothing wrong. I'm blameless, sinless." And even Job, the perfect follower, begins to get sort of worried. He starts to doubt, really. He starts to have doubt about God's goodness, just like we all do. So let me make sure we're still on the same page on that. Okay, I have literally no idea what Brandon is talking about, but okay, we love him. Okay, so your question is, why would God let Satan come and sort of challenge Job like that? Is that the question? How can a good God challenge Job? Because there's an answer in the book, which we can go to. The Lord answers Job. Let's make sure there's no context we're missing. So Job still acknowledges the power of God, the glory, the majesty, the sovereignty of God. From its chamber comes the whirlwind, and cold from the scattering winds. By the breath of God ice is given, and the broad waters are frozen fast. He loads the thick cloud with moisture. The clouds scatter his lightning. They turn round and round by his guidance to accomplish all that he commands them on the face of the habitable world. Whether for correction or for his land, or for love, he causes this to happen. Hear this, O Job. Stop and consider the wondrous works of God. Do you know how God lays his command upon them and causes the lightning of his cloud to shine? Do you know the balancings of the clouds, the wondrous works of the one whose knowledge is perfect? You whose garments are hot when the earth is still because of the south wind? Can you, like him, spread out the skies, unyielding as a cast mirror? Teach us what we shall say to him. We cannot draw up our case because of darkness. Should he be told that I want to speak? Did anyone ever wish to be swallowed up? Now no one can look on the light when it is bright in the skies, when the wind has passed and cleared them. Out of the north comes golden splendor. Around God is awesome majesty. The Almighty, we cannot find him. He is great in power and justice and abundant righteousness. He will not violate. That's important. God can righteously send suffering. How could he do that? Well, it's going to answer that question. Therefore, mortals fear him. He does not regard any who are wise in their own conceit. So before we even get into God's, I'd say his real answer to Job, his more meaty answer to Job, it's just making the point, who are you to even say? Who are you to even judge what is suffering, or how God should create the sky, how he should create the ocean? And that's what this last sentence is. Therefore mortals fear him. He does not regard any who are wise in their own conceit. So if you just assume I'm smart enough to say that God should not allow any suffering, then what this is saying is that you're conceited. And I'll agree with that, because I don't see how you can claim omniscient knowledge about what the purpose of suffering is or what it is and then blame God for that, because you don't have omniscient knowledge. You don't even believe in God. And if you did believe in God, you would know that he has the knowledge to be able to make suffering into good. So anyway, then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind. Isn't that so awesome? Aren't there such amazing images in the Bible, especially in the Old Testament? Who is this that darkens counsel by words without knowledge? Again, that's exactly what we're talking about, this conceit. You say all these words like God, if God were smarter, he'd be like me and he wouldn't create any suffering. Gird up your loins like a man. I will question you, and you shall declare to me, where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding. Who determined its measurements? This is the fine-tuning argument. Surely you know. Or who stretched the line upon it? On what were its bases sunk? Or who laid its cornerstone when the morning stars sang together, and all the heavenly beings shouted for joy? Interesting. Morning star, translation for Lucifer. Okay, who shut in the sea with doors when it burst out from the womb? When I made the clouds its garment, and thick darkness its swaddling band, and prescribed bounds for it, and set bars and doors, and said, thus far shall you come, and no farther, and here shall your proud waves be stopped. So it's you can read this, you can try to be a literalist, materialist, and read this as well, what doors? Come on, there are no doors in the ocean. But obviously that's not what the point of this is. This is about knowledge. This is about chaos. He prescribed bounds for chaos. He set bars and doors for chaos, and said to chaos, thus far shall you come, and no farther, and here shall your proud waves be stopped. Okay, so it could be a lot worse, is a good point, is a good way of figuring this out. If the universe were truly, purely just chaos, then things would be way, way worse. But God in his glory and his power sort of meets chaos, and he stopped it exactly where it's supposed to be stopped, presumably to bring about the greatest good. Have you commanded the morning since your days began, and caused the dawn to know its place, so that it might take hold of the skirts of the earth, and the wicked be shaken out of it? I mean, fascinating. He's saying, I'm going to shake the wicked out of the earth. But who are you to assume that you know how I should do that, or why they're here at all? It is changed like clay under the seal, and it is dyed like a garment. Light is withheld from the wicked, and their uplifted arm is broken. So the wicked do get their punishment. Evil is repaid in kind. Have you entered into the springs of the sea, or walked in the recesses of the deep? Have the gates of death been revealed to you, or have you seen the gates of deep darkness? Have you comprehended the expanse of the earth? Declare if you know all this. Where is the way to the dwelling of light, and where is the place of darkness, that you may take it to its territory, and that you may discern the path to its home? Surely you know, for you were born then, and the number of your days is great. Isn't this funny? God is funny. This is why God is so funny. He goes, well, you must know. Oh, you're so sure how the universe should have been created. You're so sure that there should be no suffering, no pain. So because you're so sure, you must have been there when it was created, right? Your days are infinite? God is funny. Okay. Have you entered the storehouses of the snow, or have you seen the storehouses of the hail, which I have reserved for the time of trouble, for the day of battle and war? What is the way to the place where light is distributed, or where the east wind is scattered upon the earth? It's really incredible. We could read through the whole thing, but I want to see what you guys got. Brandon being classic Brandon. God didn't protect Job from evil, and God even lets Satan into his presence and still lets him walk off and torments Job. Okay, there. For my interpretation, God is an abusive father that hires a person to abuse to see how much he can take, and then after all the suffering, is God like, good job, and gifts him some, I don't know what. Brandon, we need communism. Sure. If God exists, he's definitely not all good and all powerful, but I'm a God listening to heaven. I'm 6'1" when it. Okay, you guys are literally arguing about who could beat each other up, and you're supposed to be the smart ones. Okay, let's address your interpretation of Job as God as an abusive father that hires a person to abuse him to see how much he can take. How about a different interpretation? First of all, it is important that God does give Job twice than which everything Job had before. And this is metaphoric. You're supposed to read this allegorically, metaphorically. This is the kingdom of heaven. So whatever you've lost, whatever you've suffered, will be restored tenfold to you. Okay? Probably more, actually. Probably infinitely more. So that's one theodicy for the problem of evil. That's one way in which God is all good, and because he turns evil, he turns bad things, like, for instance, all the suffering of Job, into something at least 10 times greater. Okay? Probably 100 times, probably 1,000 times, probably infinite times, if you actually start to consider what eternity in heaven would look like. So why does God allow Satan to torture Job? Well, to give us the answer to the problem of evil. Like, for me, I think Job is probably a real person, but it doesn't matter. This is the metaphysical answer to the problem of evil. You can't possibly know why God would permit suffering, but he assures you that it's for a greater good, right? You can't know why God gave Satan the power to force us to suffer, to cause us to suffer. You just can't know that. But that doesn't mean there isn't an answer. That just means that you have a finite mind. And actually, it's not even that finite, because we can think of, like, even ChatGPT, which doesn't have a mind, can think of 5 theodicies. So if there's one possible answer to the problem of evil, then that's the answer. Because God can at least think of that or something else, something that we can't even think of. So if there's one possible answer, then you have an answer. Okay? It's not like a slam dunk to say well, in my perspective, when I create the universe, I wouldn't create any suffering. Okay? Then why don't you create a universe? Why don't you see what that's like? Does that make sense to people? I'm not sure if the sons of Job who God let the devil kill would think God is funny. I think they would. I think they would think God is funny. I think they'd understand. When they're living in an eternity in heaven, when they're glorified and sitting at the right hand of the Father, I think not only would they think God is funny, they would think he's almighty, all-powerful. Communism is the way. Good luck with that, figure 9. If this were a political stream, we could get into that, but it's not, so we probably shouldn't. Okay, we got AI. American Things, I forgot that suffering is not limited to Job. Yeah. About how Jor-El sent called on earth to save Kryptonian. Yeah. Alex, really, how does he think that would help? And then he yells at him, giving another wife and kids. We got him wait and see. Hasn't gone in much detail as far as I know. Was that moral? Even if he didn't know Superman would choose to let Doomsday win, even though he comes back to defeat him and becomes Superman Prime. Was that moral? I don't even know, Brandon. I haven't seen that one. AI could help us. So yeah, I mean, do you guys actually not understand that? Like, what don't you understand about this? What is mutually exclusive between suffering and a good God? Like, spell this out really clearly for me, because if God can make any amount of suffering into a greater good, then he will. And because that's a possibility, then that's the reality, because God is infinitely knowing and powerful. So what you have to show me why it's impossible, why it is impossible for God to create a greater good out of any amount of suffering. Yeah, beep boop, exactly. Yeah, on the political front, yeah, communism does not work. It is the most deadly ideology that's ever been created. So, good luck with it. I wish you all the blue hair dates that you ever will get from being a communist, but it's not going to work on a societal scale. Absolutely not. Unless your goal is to kill as many people as possible. Yeah, and if Brandon agrees with you, then that's how you know you have a very flawed opinion. That's what I'll put forth as well. If Brandon thinks that you should be a communist, then you definitely should not. Some kind of techno-communism socialism due to AI automation. I don't see why AI wouldn't just increase the efficacy of capitalism rather than create some sort of communism socialism. That's like saying the invention of the car will create communism because, like, horses won't have to work or something. I don't know. Yeah, there will be more capital freed up by AI, but I would hate to see that. I would hate to see an attempt by governments to distribute that capital according to their own whims and pleasures. I think that when someone kills someone's family and it's not for entertainment, so that you got that wrong. It's not for entertainment. And then you yell at them, it is very immoral. Yeah, I mean, that would be true if it were like a human. But what about when you kill someone's family and then you glorify and hold them up in eternal heaven forever, and they realize that their life was just a pinprick, at least the suffering of their life, and then you yell at the guy in order to show him what the purpose of evil is and the purpose of suffering? I don't see how that's immoral at all. Yeah. You get that, American? Do you understand the difference between killing someone as a human and perhaps permitting the death of someone as God, when you know that as God you are going to absolutely glorify them when they're going to spend eternity in heaven with you? That's a very significant difference. Very, very significant. It's when God does something, it's not the same as when a human does something. And I think he has every right to yell at Job. And I think Job had every right, just as Jesus had every right, to be despaired at the feeling of God having abandoned him and sort of condemned him to this suffering. Even Jesus himself. Eloi, Eloi, lemi sabachthani. Jesus himself felt that despair that we all feel when we feel as if God's abandoned us. But the important point is the resurrection. The factor that we forget is that the suffering is not the end of the story. The suffering is just the middle. It's just the suffering is like the black ink on the page with which the story is written. Okay. The thing that your definition of God is something you can't prove, and with every counterpoint you say, oh, God works in mysterious ways, so it's something I could not disprove. Yeah, I didn't ask you to disprove God to me. I said, show me how it's impossible for God to allow suffering and also, like, glorify that suffering. But I don't think he's out of our realm of understanding. It's just he can't fully be understood, but we can know parts of him, and we can know as much as we can know about him. And to Americans, so if God let your family die, you would still love him? Of course. Honest question, not trying to be mean. Yeah, no, I don't think you're trying to be mean. Of course I would still love him. Of course I would. Because not only did he, if he had let my family die and then, like, I don't know, sent them to hell or showed me that he was torturing them or whatever, then no, I would not love him. But that's not what he does. He lets my family die and then he gives them eternal life. Do you understand? So it's like you're hyper focused on the part that proves your point, which is the death, but you're completely forgetting the actual conclusion that all Christians draw, that there is eternal life on the other side of death, that there is a way for God to transmute any bad into a greater good. And so until you can show me either philosophically or logically or evidentially that that is impossible, that he cannot do that, then there's absolutely no reason for me to assume that he won't do that. You know what I mean? Okay, so the definition... Oh, wait, I already talked about this. Something cannot be... If I knew God legit killed my family, I could not worship him or love someone who does that. What if you knew he created your family and also glorified them in heaven forever? Well, we're told the tradition is that Jesus went down into hell and brought everybody up from, like, into heaven, like, sort when he died. But also the way that that's conceptualized in my mind, at least, and I think in the tradition, is that, like, if Job's family died like that, that from their perspective, they would immediately go to heaven. They would immediately go, because God and Jesus are eternal. So should we get back into paint? So if Job and his family die here, and Jesus dies here, and when he dies, he goes up into heaven and comes back to right here and grabs Job and his family and brings them out, there's no contradiction. And these people spend no time in hell or anywhere else, like in non-existence or whatever. Does that make sense? And then, of course, this is what Jesus does for everybody and going forward, okay? So shouldn't we then kill ourselves because heaven is so amazing? But that would be to spit in the face of the gift that you've been given here. So that would be like if God gave you a gift and you were so ungrateful for it that you threw it at his forehead. You threw it right in his eye. That doesn't seem like a good way to get into heaven to me. I mean, maybe God would save you or something, depending on your circumstances. But that seems like that would be really, really rude to God and a pretty good way to decrease your chances of eternal salvation. To absolutely be so ungrateful for your gift of life that you just throw it away, kill yourself, cause suffering and pain for your whole family, everyone that knows you, everybody that loves you. No, I don't think there's any good reason to kill yourself at all. It's kind of like, oh, so then should I just do heroin because heroin's so amazing? It's like, pff, sure, go for it. See how that works out. If it's a gift he respects, why would he take it so easy from people like Job's family? Well, that's easy. If God gives you a gift and then he wants to take it away and give you a greater gift, why does he not have the right to do that? That sounds like a great thing for him to do. Do you understand the difference between when God gives you a gift and then takes that gift away and gives you an even greater gift? Then when he gives you a gift and you take it in your hand, you look at it and you say, fuck that, and then you throw it right in his eye. Those are two very different scenarios. Very, very different. Yeah. What is this Superman argument? I'm kind of curious. Dennis Hasabi says, unironically, one of his goals when we reach super AI is understanding the nature of reality. the universe further, so maybe we'll have more scientific evidence eventually. Interesting. I don't know who Demis Hassabis is, but that's an interesting goal. I do secretly expect AI to confirm the existence of God, although I won't state that as a fact, but does that make God an Indian giver for giving life, then just taking it back if he feels like it, lol? If that's how you want to describe it, I guess. Again, he's God, so um, yeah, right. So the heroin analogy is a little bit incomplete because heroin is nothing like heaven. But the more important point is that you would be spitting in God's face to kill yourself. That's the more important point. Not that it's like doing heroin, really. But maybe I can make that analogy clearer because it's another way to put it is, so you said, oh, well, if heaven's so amazing, then shouldn't we just kill ourselves? Shouldn't we perform some horrible evil just to feel the pleasure of living in heaven? I mean, that's the ultimate form of hedonism. I don't think there's anything that suggests God wants us to be hedonists. So yeah, that is the penultimate hedonism, would be to kill yourself to experience infinite pleasure by definition. Yeah, I agree with Alex here. It's just great to argue, and I'd argue heaven won't have free will. I disagree. I believe heaven will absolutely have free will, but that your will be aligned to God's will by your choice. Okay? No, you will have the choice of good or bad, but you will never make the bad choice. That's what it would mean to have free will in heaven. But who knows? Maybe there could be another fall. Really, you don't know. Like, I guess there could be another fall. But yeah, the nature of heaven is such that you won't get in, you won't go there until your will is aligned with God's will, almost by definition. And there's no reason you wouldn't want that once you're at that stage. Like, once you can see the bigger picture, once you can get there and feel that love and feel that acceptance and grace, there'd be absolutely no reason to desire anything else. Right. I guess in a sense it is kind of an in between, or it's kind of a both and, right? You have free will and you have this like sort of unified will, right? Yeah, we don't know though. We don't really know. There's not much dogmatic about heaven as far as I'm concerned, or as far as I know. But so I asked in the poll, do you believe in metaphysical things? It looks like over half of you do believe in metaphysical things. So what kind of, according to the Mormons, I believe, heaven and hell are other planets, actually. I believe that's loosely, I'm not super versed on Mormonism, but that is like loosely the Mormon conception. At least heaven, that like if you're a good enough person, then you'll get your own planet and you get to be the god of that planet. And they also believe God is a man. So that's how they solve the problem of evil. They say God was a person on a planet who became so transcendent that he became the God of our universe, but he didn't create the universe. He just is the God of our universe. And it's a really wacky tradition. But yeah, they would say heaven and hell are like, or heaven at least is a planet. Yeah. No, Figure 9. We definitely should not unalive or kill our fellow humans to send them to heaven and save them from the evils of our world and Satan, because that would be evil, right? That would be you disgracing God. Again, spitting in his face, even more egregiously than killing yourself, would to be kill someone else who doesn't want to be killed, obviously. That would be the most egregious way to spit in God's literal face, because we're made in the image of God, imago Dei. So you as a human have absolutely no right to send someone else to heaven as you think they will be, even if they are sent there. That's just not your role in the universe and creation. That's God's role, or angels or something else. I want to be the god of my own planet. Yeah, I think real heaven would be a lot cooler than just being the god of your own planet. Because, like, what if you get a shitty planet? What if you get Mars? um, it's evil if we do it, but not if God does it. Yeah, exactly. It actually, I know you're being like tongue in cheek, sarcastic, ironic, but it actually is true. There's a big difference between God and you. God, for instance, knows for a fact that those people are going to heaven or where they're going. God created those people. He created everything. So, like, a painter has authority and can do what he wills with his own painting. If he wants to throw it in the trash, he can throw it in the trash. If he wants to sell it for $1 trillion, he can do that. If he wants to put it in a museum, he can do that. But you, for instance, going to a museum, do not have the right or the authority to throw the Mona Lisa in the trash, right? It's pretty simple. Why would it be evil to kill someone? Because it would be, I mean, it's obviously evil to kill someone, because I guess the destruction of innocence, the rippling of pain outwards towards the family and the friends of the person you killed, the chaos it introduced into society if you just allow everybody to kill anybody they want. The fact that you are taking what's God's and making it yours. The fact that you're presuming that you have the right to deal with God's creation the way that he has the right to deal with God's creation. I'd give them so much good. I thought heaven was the best thing. You mean on your own planet? Dude, if I was God of my own universe, I'd make Mass Effect into reality. Would be so sick. Yeah, but would you give them free toy? Would you make suffering? Would you make? I'm just being annoying. But do you understand how hard it would be to create the universe and how impossible it is for you to say that God could not create the universe with suffering? Like, especially if you want to make Mass Effect into a real thing. But I agree it would be sick. I agree it would be sick. And I think you'd actually have more chance of creating Mass Effect or creating any story you want, any video game or any story, if you were actually in heaven than if you were in some sort of material planet, right? Like, in heaven, maybe you can create your own universes and share in the act of creation or do something cool like that. But in the Mormon thing, it's like, oh, you're just the god of a planet. It seems like you're super limited. Like, for one, you can only use that planet. Or how do you interact with other gods of other planets? Like, which Mormon gods have more power than other ones? I'm sure I'm butchering their, like, theology, but that's my basic. Yeah, I'd say there's no suffering in heaven. I'd say there's no suffering. Yeah. That would be my intuition. I think that's what the tradition tells us. It seems like that's the way Jesus describes it. That's what I would think. Oh, this chapter is so amazing. Is it by your wisdom that the hawk soars and spreads its wings towards the south? Is it at your command that the eagle mounts up and makes its nest on high? It lives on the rock and makes its home in the fastness of the rocky crag. From there it spies the prey. Its eyes see it from far away. Its young ones suck up blood, and where the slain are, there it is. Shall a fault finder contend with the Almighty? Wow, powerful. Anyone who argues with God must respond. That's right. Then Job answered the Lord, see, I am of small account. What shall I answer you? I lay my hand on my mouth. I have spoken once, and I will not answer. Twice, but will proceed no further. Wow. Incredible. I read this, by the way. Look at Behemoth, which I made just as I made you. It eats grass like an ox. Its strength is in its loins, and its power in the muscle of its belly. It makes its tail stiff like a cedar. The sinew of its thighs are knit together. Its bones are tubes of bronze, its limbs like bars of iron. It is the first act of the it is the first of the great acts of God. Only its maker can approach it with the sword. For the mountains yield food for it where all the wild animals play. Under the lotus plant it lies, in the coverts of the reeds and in the marsh. The lotus tree covers it for shade. The willows of the wadi surround it. Even if the river is turbulent, it is not frightened. It is confident, though the river Jordan rushes against its mouth. Can one take it with hooks or pierce its nose with a snare? I always read this as a dinosaur. I don't know about you guys, but behemoth. That sounds like a dinosaur to me. Like it's hanging out. It's got this tail stiff like a cedar. Like imagine like those tree trunks tails that we see in these massive, thick bones. And really only God could take out the dinosaurs. Some giant meteor or whatever. Okay. Give them so much good. That heaven was the best thing, dude. Okay, good on the shepherd. So there's no suffering in heaven. Heaven might be similar to how we were pre-fallen from Eden. Yeah, I agree. So does God sleep because it says he rested? No. I think that's, again, that would be reading it in like a fundamentalist way, which nobody does. Nobody wants to do except for a small sect of evangelical Southern Baptist Christians. But no, I don't think there's any reason to think God sleeps. Just because it says he's rested, especially because Jesus tells us in the Gospels that the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath, right? So the idea of resting on Sunday or resting on the seventh day after working, that's for us. That's not for God. That's not something we do for God. That's something God did for us to give us rest. Yeah, the story of creation is not to be taken like literally. I agree. So in heaven, humans can't have free will because that could cause suffering, right? Maybe that's why all this evil stuff's happening. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I disagree with that interpretation of the Old Testament that God's been asleep. That just doesn't seem like what the text tells us, and that's not what Jesus tells us. And again, you're just sort of presuming that there's no justification for evil when you make that claim. So in heaven, humans can't have free will because that could cause suffering, right? No, I think that's the difference. I think in heaven, your free will is to freely choose to be with God, and that's what allows you to be there, right? But again, I leave it open. I mean, no, there's no suffering in heaven. I leave it open, though, that if you were to make the choice or something to leave heaven for whatever reason, to go against God and separate yourself from him, perhaps like a lightning flash, like Satan at the beginning of time, you would immediately be cast out. I don't look, I don't want to be dogmatic about that. I don't know exactly how heaven works, but I think there must be free will in heaven, but that the only way to get into heaven is for your will to be aligned with God's. So yeah, I don't think those are mutually exclusive, that because there's no suffering in heaven, you don't have free will. What if everybody just freely chooses not to suffer? Because remember, there aren't things like gravity, so like you can't trip and fall and break your leg. So that kind of suffering doesn't exist. Yeah, people that would go to heaven wouldn't want to harm anybody. Right. There's that. I think you also wouldn't have like a physical brain with like anxiety and depression and things like that. Like you wouldn't have like chemicals, you wouldn't have biology compelling you to do certain things that cause suffering. Like you would have clear sights. You would know exactly what the right thing to do is. And if you didn't choose to do it, then I don't know, I don't see why you wouldn't choose to do the right thing given the perfect view of it. And yeah, that goes back to Satan. So why did Satan choose to do the wrong thing given his heavenly status? I don't know. And I don't know if that's unique to him. Like apparently a third of the angels did follow him. A third of the angels did follow him. So is it possible for heavenly bodies, heavenly agents to go against the will of God? Sure, but then they're just not in heaven. they just instantly get cast down. So that would be my answer. So what happens to people that go to hell in your perspective? That is a good question. Um, I think I have to accept what the gospel tells us about hell. It's a place of fire and brimstone and perhaps torture, but perhaps could be seen better as like some kind of like punishment, like a just punishment. Um, but again, maybe this is hell, or maybe if you to be in hell is just to stay in your earthly sort of confined prison-like perspective. Like that could be one interpretation of what hell is. Or there's the other one, which I have to really find out if I am allowed to say this, like if there's any biblical grounding for this, or if this is even possible given the biblical context. But the idea that what happens when you die is that in a Jungian sense, your negative personalities, which you could sometimes see as your negative personality traits, but for Carl Jung would represent actual sort of persons within you. So the jealous Reese, the hateful Reese, the cunning or the conniving Reese, these things, these parts of me would all be cast into hell to be destroyed, like in a shredder, like in a paper shredder. Whereas the good parts of me would be synthesized into my soul and my consciousness and sent to heaven. And then you could really see why I would never choose to leave heaven, because all the parts of me that might want to choose something else are already cast into hell. So it's not clear to me, like when in the Bible it talks about sifting the wheat from the chaff, that the wheat and the chaff are different physical human bodies, different people, but rather the different personalities that make up a single individual. Does that track with anybody? Okay, figure 9. We are about to get back into the free will debate, which is okay, but that's okay. We can get into that because you weren't here yesterday. So God created heaven, a realm with no suffering and free will. Why didn't he only create heaven instead of the whole universe? That's a good question. I mean, I don't know exactly. I don't have like probably a super satisfying answer to you, but it comes down to this question. So you're saying you'd rather not be created given those circumstances. Is that what you're saying? Because surely you're not perfect. Surely you have flaws, and perhaps some of those flaws make you who you are. I know some of my flaws make me who I am. So you're saying you'd rather not exist at all than experience the adventure of life. Is that what you're proposing when you ask that question? So what happens to people that go to hell? Oh yeah, maybe it's all about our character development. Yep, that's part of it. Also, God is outside of time. So when he creates a person, he knows their fate. He sees all time at once. No, if he sees a person would be evil, he just doesn't create this person. Well, American M, I would say your story is not even close to over. So having met you and talked to you and knowing that you are open, I have no doubt in my mind that you will not be sent to hell. I did use two negatives. I have no doubt in my mind that you can and will be saved, given the fact that you remain open, given the circumstance that you remain open. I believe God will make himself known to you in no uncertain terms, and anybody who's truly open and wants to know and seeks. So about when God, just because God knows something is going to happen, doesn't mean he makes it happen. Doesn't mean he makes you do that. So we talked about this at length yesterday, but I still want to hold, and I still do hold, that it's called Molinism. I looked into it a little bit more from a philosopher or theologian named Molina, and it's the idea that God has this sort of subjunctive knowledge, okay, which means he knows what you would do given all your influences and circumstances and everything about you. Does that mean he makes choices for you? Does that mean you could not do something else? No, it does not mean that. He just knows, because he has all the information, what you would do. Um, and then you asked, why wouldn't he just not create this person? And that's back to the question, should he have not created anything? Should he have created absolutely nothing in your view? Because that's sort of an ultimate nihilism. I don't know if you actually want to hold that or if you actually believe that, but that's what you're proposing. Is a radical nihilism. How do I like? Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure if you really want to stick by that. That just because somebody can be evil in a moment, that they should not be created. Otherwise, you shouldn't be created. I shouldn't be created. None of us should be here. Why didn't he only create heaven instead of the whole universe? Well, that's kind of a misconception. Yeah, yeah, a guy, yeah. That's why I was a little bit reluctant to jump into the free will thing because one, we did talk about it a lot yesterday, but and two, it does sort of devolve into this like meaningless thing because whether you believe it or not, you still do it. So I agree that it is hard to use in an argument, but I'm just responding to Figure Nine's point directly. Christian music artists. I'm not a fan of like Christian rock or whatever. I actually don't like that stuff. Because listen, here's my thing. God creates all music, right? Or like not directly, but God can be found in music generally. Whether they're all wearing crosses and turtleneck sweaters and their names are Jimothy and John and James and then they all like sing acoustic guitar, like sure, probably I'm sure God is in that. But if I'm listening to Led Zeppelin and if I'm listening to Kashmir by Led Zeppelin, it's like I'm feeling God. Oh, I just got a tingle. I feel God a lot more in that type of song than I ever have in any sort of like Christian rock. Um, because that's what God is vast and real and powerful. And so my favorite Christian music is not typically considered Christian music, but it's music that I find God in, that I feel Him in. Yeah. And there's rap music too. This guy Jid, he's awesome. He's my favorite rapper right now. Super cool. And certainly no one would be like, he's a Christian rapper. Definitely not. But, and J. Cole is like this too. God is just suffused throughout their entire discography. Like he's just everywhere, which is awesome. Jelly Roll, I think I have heard of. Then another one, Creed, right? I think a lot of their music is very Christian. I was jamming out to some Creed yesterday. Can you take me higher? Right, that song. Oh, the poll question. Sure. Do you believe in metaphysical things? So very simply, I've asked this question a minute. Yesterday, I asked, "Did you grow up religious?" Usually, the poll is, "Do you believe in God?" And now I'm curious if people believe in metaphysics, if they believe in anything beyond the physical, material realm that you can touch or examine scientifically. So I'm sure all of you believe in electromagnetism and gravity. I know you can't touch that, but I'm not really counting that in metaphysics. I'm talking about objective morality, objective truth, objective justice. Basically, do you believe that conceptual things are real? Do you think that we discern concepts from their true existence in reality and we like learn about them and discover them? Or do you think we purely create things like justice, like morality, so on and so forth? Okay, figure nine. What I write is not what I believe. I remember I responded to, but now I kind of don't really remember what I said. But so I don't believe in any God. I simply try to understand your position. So I appreciate that. Yeah, I don't presume that you actually do believe in God. But given the question, I kind of have to answer in the framework that you presented to. So whatever I said, I was probably just responding within the framework of that question. Um, so you'd have to ask a different question based on your atheism to get my response to your actual position. Um, so you're a deist. So that's super metaphysical. That's a hyper metaphysic. That's cool. Although I don't think there are set morals, I believe we create all that. Seems arbitrary. Why wouldn't the D in deist be interested in morality? Like, is he not a moral creature? Or, I mean, a moral being? Or maybe he is, but he just doesn't expect us to be? Yeah, rip to... Did Juice World die too? Or just X? I don't know. But yeah, rip to those guys if they both died. I know X did. But, yeah. So, yeah, that's the moral argument. Again, we could go into that. Could go into that. I know I did pose it as a question, but we can go into anything, really. I'm interested if you guys... So objective morality would be a metaphysical thing, but it seems strange that you believe in the ultimate metaphysic, like an actual God that created the universe, but then you don't believe in a lesser metaphysic like morality. That seems unintuitive to me. It seems like it'd be easier to just believe in morality and not a deist God than it would be to believe in a deist God and not morality. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe you can elucidate me. Can you take me higher? To the place where blind man see. Okay. I think he created the universe but does not care about it in any sense. And if he does have morals, it is out of our compression because he did not involve himself in our lives. Okay. I want to be a deist or theist, but I cannot find God anywhere. Every time I think it's God, turns out it's neuroscience. Right, because neuroscience is the uncaused cause. Neuroscience is the first cause. The answer to the cosmological argument is neuroscience. Sure. Brandon, you beast. Okay, figure 9. Well, greetings from America to Europe. Thank you for joining and proposing some very nice and interesting, thoughtful questions. We hope we can get you again sometime. So make sure you like and subscribe to know when we're going. And it was a pleasure, brother. Get some sleep. God bless you. Okay, we're left to our own devices, and that means our own morals. I just don't see God as possible. And from there, I don't understand why anyone should need a God to answer anything. Yeah, you don't need God to answer anything. It's just a question of whether you want to be more or less accurate or have a better or worse understanding of the structure of reality. That's why you posit the existence of a God. We're left to our own devices. Just doesn't seem like we're left to our own devices because there's been so many times in history. Like, would you say that the abolition of slavery was a moral advancement? Is it morally better to abolish slavery than to have slavery all around? Can you take me higher? That song literally is going to be stuck in my head all day. To the place where blind men see. Yeah, Brandon, get on this Discord, brother. Come on, Brandon, get in here. I'll throw it down one more time. Oh, that is not what I'm pasting. Um. You don't even succumb to the truth that gods are not possible. That's not a truth. That's just a claim. That's just conjecture by you. Just because you say something is true. I am a trillionaire. What? You don't succumb to the truth that I am a trillionaire? You see what I'm saying? You can't just assert something baselessly and say that it's a truth. There is no evidence to suggest any kind of God except for the evidence that we've been talking about for the last 2 weeks. As a deist, I don't think we can know anything about the creator if there is one. Okay, this is all right. Let's zoom in on this a little bit. I'll join your Discord, Brandon. I don't care. It doesn't have to be my Discord. Okay, so let's zoom in on the question by American. As a deist, I don't even think we can know anything about the creator if there is one. Okay, so, well, I think a deist would have to say that God created the universe. But anyway, regardless of that, can you be closer or farther away from any truth claim about the deist God? Is there a way to know it 10% or 12% versus another religion or something or another worldview that knows it 0.1%? Is there a distinction that can be made between religions in terms of how much they get right about the unknowable God? I would say yes, there absolutely is. For instance, Scientology patently seems to get the existence of God less right than other traditions. It explains why we don't see any event like in the Old Testament. It's because there is not God in our lives or ever. He is unknowable and does not mess with the universe. Brandon, you are a beast, bro. I live in imagination land of conjecture where assertions and claims are as good as fact. I mean, that's not true. I don't think anybody thinks that's true, but I appreciate you, Brandon. I do appreciate you. Multiplying 0 is 0. So, Brandon, you think that Scientology gets the existence of God, forget the existence of God. You think Scientology describes reality as well as atheism? Is that what you're saying? Or is atheism the only one that is a positive value? I guess that's what you would say, because you reason circularly and you have no basis for your claims. So you just state what you believe to be true, and then you say, because I believe this is true, this must be true. I only use the Bible when we're talking about interreligious debates, like when or inter? I think inter. So I don't use the Bible to prove theism, for instance, but you don't use anything to prove atheism except for your own opinion. So I'm not sure what ground you're standing on here, Brandon. And you didn't answer my question because you don't answer any questions, but you think Scientology describes the universe as accurately as, like, agnosticism or Buddhism or Sikhism. Comic Brandon, you are wild, bro. You are wild. It would be really hard to debate you. You basically have none of the conventions of a human being. I'm not actually convinced that you are a human being, to be fair. But you make none of the concessions that a normal human makes. So you're right. It probably would be difficult to debate you. But I still want to. because you're a coward, and I'd like to see you man up a little bit, find some courage, find your voice, feel comfortable. I mean, you're supposed to be a comedian. It's surprising to me that you won't even talk in front of 5 people. I don't know how you could ever perform in front of more than 5 in a real room, but anyway. I stand on that on all 3 of my legs. Yeah, Brandon Scientologist confirmed. Cool. That would be really funny if Brandon just like gives himself to the Church of Scientology. The fact that we see all these different gods makes more sense in an atheistic world rather than one true God. Disagree. In an atheist world, not only would we not expect to see reason or logic or anything that is passed down to us by the principle of like mind, but we would definitely not expect to see any gods. We would not expect to see any gods at all if we lived in an atheistic world. If truly there was no supernatural realm, no metaphysical things, then no culture, no religion would ever propose God, because it's on the base of it, it is ludicrous. They would all be like Comic Brandon. They would look at exactly what's in front of them, especially simple ancient people, and say, this is what's here. But we do have divine revelation. God does exist. God does write his laws into the nature and into our hearts. And so given one true God, you would expect people who are confused and live in a confused world to misinterpret God in all these different ways. You would definitely expect that. And under atheism, you wouldn't expect any of that. You wouldn't expect what we have at all. Yeah, a lot of Hollywood people are Scientologists. My ex-girlfriend used to work across from the Scientology Celebrity Center in Hollywood, which is crazy. I mean, it's this giant, beautiful mansion, and that's where they do like brain surgery on Tom Cruise. Brain surgery. Yeah, Brandon got his big win. Good for you, Brandon. You got that doobie. It's 420 already? It's 221, Brandon. You're a couple months early. You crazy. Crazy bastard. Okay, what if we do this? I hope you guys enjoyed that Job segment. Hey, this looks interesting.
The resurrection.
How about this? This could be fun. I love Dr. Lennox, so I hope you guys enjoy.
Is not the ordinary laws of nature working and pushing Christ out from the tomb. No, it's God feeding a new event in. His power comes into what is not a closed system, but an open system. God designed the universe, and here comes the irony of the whole thing. If we didn't know how the universe normally worked, we'd never recognize the miracle if we saw one.
Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Some of you guys know I'm working through this video series with Fan, where we kind of break down these 4 claims in the Jubilee Linux. So let's begin.
We have the historical reportage model, right?
But you keep saying we have this model.
That's fine. Let me give you some evidence for the historical reportage model.
Sure.
If this model is true, one of the things I would expect to see would be things like undesigned coincidences within the Gospels.
Yep.
Tiny little interlocking
Okay.
details.
For the sake of time, I understand what you're saying. So I think that a lot in the Gospels is historically reliable, and a lot is not. Things like undesigned coincidences
So
are
you're
really
taking a
interesting.
pericope by pericope approach to this, or what methodology?
I'm taking
are
a
you
story by story. I don't think that the
using? I
graves.
think I don't think that's a good
I
methodology.
don't think that the graves of Jerusalem were opened.
Okay, so basically this point is relevant because he kind of gets Alex to admit his methodology for determining what...
Not the ordinary laws of nature does not translate to no evidence, by the way. That I don't see how you're getting that. It just means you wouldn't expect it given the evidence that we have, but if there's evidence that it happens, then that does not conflict with the ordinary laws of nature. And also welcome. Also welcome, David. As everyone else got to the
what
point
parts
first.
of the Gospels he thinks are actually history and which parts aren't. And his methodology is that he takes it story by story. Now, we didn't get any more information beyond that, but I think it's pretty clear that what he means is if there's a story that doesn't go along with what is normative in reality,
I do invoke magic. I would be, laws can be broken, so that metaphor is as dumb as you would usually expect from comic Brandon. Laws can obviously be broken, especially if you were the ultimate lawmaker, like you created the laws. But anyway, all right, we're gonna ignore Brandon. We're gonna go back to David. You have to invoke magic. I do invoke magic. Magic is real. Magic is apparent. Magic is everywhere, okay? And especially in the resurrection and the miracles of Christ. And yeah, Alex O'Connor is a brutal opponent. I've taken him on, not personally. One day I hope to talk to Alex. I don't really want to debate him because I feel like he'll crush me. I feel like he'll actually crush me in a debate. But I do want to talk to him at some point, or meet him at least. That would be awesome. But I have taken him on in other YouTube videos where I just dissect something that he talked about. So it is a brutal opponent. Yeah, Alex O'Connor did a really, really good job in that video. And the better responses are the responses of people after that video came out. Like, for instance, I would say my response, but hey, not to toot my own horn. But more importantly, people like Trent Horn, like actual apologists that went into that video and said, okay, so these people were rushing up to the table and like waving flags to get each other out. They each have like 20 seconds to make a point. Given that environment, yeah, those people are not making good points. But then what the apologists after were able to do is go in and actually address what Alex O'Connor was talking about. And Trent Horn makes a great video kind of addressing each of those points. Even though I kind of find Trent Horn annoying, I don't know why. Like, I shouldn't find him annoying, but I do. I think he's probably a good guy, but he has like a weird air to him. I don't know. Yeah, Alex on Alex. That'd be great. James Randi had a proposal that if you could prove magic, ESP, astrology, he'd give you $1 million. No one ever came forward. Well, that's the thing, because magic, by definition, is not scientific, right? So he's probably, I'm guessing, I haven't heard of this, but I'm guessing he's asking for a scientific proof of magic. And just because I say magic exists doesn't mean I believe everything that claims to be magic is real or exists, like psychics or ESP or something like that. But it's just that if God wants to defy the laws of nature, he, of course, can defy the laws of nature and send miracles. That just seems obvious to me. That's self-evident within God's definition. Oh, you know Trent Horn, American? Yeah, he is pretty annoying. Yeah. All right, let's keep going with this and see what.
And it's probably not true, right? So he's talking about
this guy. I also don't know how I feel about. To be clear, I watched a lot of his shorts, and he usually is like, he usually takes like a clip that's better, right? Like he takes like a John Lennox thing or a William Lane Craig thing. But this guy, I'm not sure where I stand. I think I like it. I think we'd be buddies. I think we'd be friends. But I'm not. He also gives me a kind of a strange vibe. But anyway. So if magic isn't real, then how did the universe get created? Like if there were no laws of nature and then suddenly laws of nature exist, how did they come into being? Why would God grant so much power and grace to a church that he does not favor? Why is the LDS 30% of the NSA, FBI, CIA? Because that's easy. Duh. Satan is the one that has power over money. Satan is the one that tempts people with money. Satan is the one that props up horrific governments and authoritarian powers like the CIA. So yeah, that's an easy answer. Why is the LDS? Lots of people are extremely successful in spite of God's view towards them. I mean, that's what Satan's greatest, that was his temptation over Christ, was he said, I'll give you, you just don't be God, you don't be perfect, but I'll give you the entire world. I'll give you all the kingdoms of the earth. That's what he can do. That's what Satan's allowed to do. Yeah, God Logic is sick. I love God Logic. I love Sam Shamoon. He's awesome. I love William Lane Craig. I know people have problems with him. I really don't see why. Ruslan I like as well. I do like Ruslan. He's cool. He's pretty cool. Yeah, I know. You guys love just stating things. Satan doesn't exist. Yeah. What would you think would be cool to make one stream themed around AI/AGI? Would be cool to explain the topic for. That would be a good idea. That's something I'll think about, Alex. Maybe for next week I'll do a AI specific stream and what the overlaps are with theology and AI, what the implications are for free will, the implications for personhood, for salvation. Can an AI, if it is a person, be saved? That'd be interesting. That'd be interesting. And Brandon, I'm just not in the realm of insanity, no matter what you think. Because an insane person acts crazy, doesn't they? Don't they? An insane person does not function in the world. But actually, I function in the world better because of my beliefs. Because I can synthesize evil and good. Well, I don't want to say I'm better. I don't want to say I function in the world better than you. But I function in the world better now compared to when I didn't believe in this stuff. When I believed like you did, I had no reason to not do evil. I had absolutely no reason. No fundamental reason, right? Now there's a very clear and obvious path to being a better person, a non-hurtful person, non-evil person. So yeah, I would say that's not insanity. That's just truth. Okay.
Resurrection, for example, this is one of those moments where you actually get an articulation of something that is operating at a philosophical level, at a worldview level, not at a history level. But in case you're confused, let me...
You're the one stating things without providing evidence, except when what you have read in the Bible. You cannot use a book to prove that book's claims. I don't know what I stated that needs that book, other than perhaps the resurrection of Christ. But then you absolutely can use the gospel to validate historical claims because it is a historical text. I don't know how many times I can iterate this to you guys. The gospels are historical texts. They're as historical as any history gets for all of time. So if you want to deny that Christ was a person or that he died, you have to deny that Alexander the Great was a person and that he did what he did. You have to deny that Julius Caesar was a person. You have to deny a lot of things. So I don't really rely fully on the Bible. I mostly rely on philosophy and theology to make claims about reality. Show me the beginning of a universe. Brandon, we went over this. I don't know how to time travel, so I can't do that. Don't do evil and you'll stay out of jail. So you can do anything as long as you don't go to jail, David. Is that what you're saying? That's a horrible metric to live by. You can be a really, really, really bad person and stay out of jail. And you can even do illegal things and stay out of jail. So if that's what you're basing your moral structure on, I feel sorry for the people around you. Right. And American, yeah, I know you don't deny that he existed and died. A lot of atheists do, but yeah, you're right. The smarter of you do not deny that. Show me the need for the universe to begin. Okay, so the need for the universe to begin is the impossibility of an infinite set of real things. Do you want me to explain that to you? Sure, let's do that. Because you guys really never get this concept. You guys have never understood this concept, and it's probably about time. So I'm going to ignore you until we finish this video.
In the 1920s, the German mathematician David Hilbert devised a famous thought experiment to show us just how hard it is to wrap our minds around the concept of infinity. Imagine a hotel with an infinite number of rooms and a very hard-working night manager. One night, the infinite hotel is completely full, totally booked up with an infinite number of guests. A man walks into the hotel and asks for a room. Rather than turn him down, the night manager decides to make room for him. How? Easy. He asks the guest in room number 1 to move to room 2, the guest in room 2 to move to room 3, and so on. every guest moves from room number n to room number n plus 1. Since there are an infinite number of rooms, there is a new room for each existing guest. This leaves room 1 open for the new customer. The process can be repeated for any finite number of new guests. If, say, a tour bus unloads 40 new people looking for rooms, then every existing guest just moves from room number n to room number n plus 40, thus opening up the first 40 rooms. But now, an infinitely large bus with a countably infinite number of passengers pulls up to rent rooms. Countably infinite is the key. Now, the infinite bus of infinite passengers perplexes the night manager at first, but he realizes there's a way to place each new person. He asks the guest in room 1 to move to room 2. He then asks the guest in room 2 to move to room 4, the guest in room 3 to move to room 6, and so on. Each current guest moves from room number n to room number 2n, filling up only the infinite even-numbered rooms. By doing this, he has now emptied all of the infinitely many odd-numbered rooms, which are then taken by the people filing off the infinite bus. Everyone's happy, and the hotel's business is booming more than ever. Well, actually, it is booming exactly the same amount as ever, banking an infinite number of dollars a night. Word spreads about this incredible hotel. People pour in from far and wide. One night, the unthinkable happens. The night manager looks outside and sees an infinite line of infinitely large buses, each with a countably infinite number of passengers. What can he do? If he cannot find rooms for them, the hotel will lose out on an infinite amount of money, and he will surely lose his job. Luckily, he remembers that around the year 300 BCE, Euclid proved that there is an infinite quantity of prime numbers. So to accomplish this seemingly impossible task of finding infinite beds for infinite buses of infinite weary travelers, the night manager assigns every current guest to the first prime number, 2, raised to the power of their current room number. So the current occupant of room number 7 goes to room number 2 to the 7th power, which is room 128. The night manager then takes the people on the first of the infinite buses and assigns them to the room number of the next prime, 3, raised to the power of their seat number on the bus.
Yeah, okay, good. So you guys are getting it. Do we need to finish the video? It's a concept. Infinite doesn't exist. There is no way to prove something is infinite. Okay, do you remember what what I'm responding to? I'm responding to Comic Brandon's claim that the universe, that he said, show me that the universe has a beginning. You guys are all agreeing that a real set of infinite things can exist, i.e. time, i.e. matter. So instead of time, just to make it easier, because it's to make a discrete thing that has to be infinite, days, okay? Days or matter. Because that can exist, as you guys all agree, therefore, the universe has a beginning. Do you need me to show it to you in any simpler terms, Brandon? I don't think I can dumb it down any more than this, literally. You asked me to show you that the universe has a beginning. By showing you that it can't be infinite, I'm showing you that it has a beginning. No, Brandon, you are so... Don't get frustrated. Pray for patience. Brandon, finite means end and beginning. If it doesn't have a beginning, then it's infinite. Duh. Okay. So good point. I don't know what he's talking about. What would exist after the end of the universe then? I guess Brandon asked that. Not sure where we're at right now. But, yeah, no, the strange claim is that the universe is infinite. If the universe has a beginning and an end, that makes perfect sense. That can actually be accounted for. But I don't know what you guys are saying. Like, do you understand how finitude means beginning? How there must be a beginning to something finite? Yes, finite means something that has a limit or end. It is limited in scope or nature. All right, let's do it. Let's do the infinite, having no boundaries or limits, impossible to measure or calculate. There you go. Immeasurably great or large. Boundless, as in not bound by a beginning or an end. Existing beyond or being greater than any arbitrarily large value. So what is your guys' point? Yeah, I agree. I'm the one that believes that the universe has a limit, that it's limited in scope and in nature. So you guys are the ones saying it's infinite by saying it has no beginning. Claim upon claim upon claim amounts to zero evidence, bucko. That's not true. Finite means it is limited. I agree. David, we're on the same page here, brother. Finite means limited. The universe is finite. The universe is limited. Where are we? Where's the disconnect here? Okay, David, you're not listening to yourself. If it never had a beginning, in what sense is it finite? If it never had a beginning, in what sense is it finite? Yeah, you have to explain that because it's not intuitive and it doesn't make sense. It's contradictory. Brandon, you're done. You are being too difficult today. You have no... What's going to be left after the universe end? I really don't know. That's a good question. I don't really know what's left after the universe end. Us. Keep watching this. Okay. Well, I don't think we can be in a cycle because let me do that. If this was the beginning of the universe and this was the whole expanse of time and then it comes back here and this is like the end of the universe, then you have so you have cause, the first cause, the uncaused cause, effect, all the way around, effect, then you have an effect causing its own cause. Does everyone see how ridiculous that is? How absurd it is to think that the effect of a single cause could be the cause of itself. That's like if you went back and killed your grandfather or whatever in time. David, if you're saying the universe has no beginning, then you're saying that the universe is infinite. I don't think I said that. Did I say that you said the universe is finite? Oh, wait. Oh, now I'm getting all confused. Okay. The disconnect, you using loaded language. I'm not using loaded language. I'm using very simple language, Brandon. Just because you don't understand it doesn't mean it's not loaded. Yeah, I agree that we don't know how the universe began, but I don't agree that we can know nothing about how the universe began. We can know some things. Like, for instance, if it created time and space and matter, well, how could there be time and space and matter before those things were ever created? Do you understand that? So there's at least 3 things we know about the beginning of the universe. Timeless, spaceless, immaterial. How do you see this? Right. Yeah, Big Bang, we know, which confirms Genesis, strangely. But anyway. Yeah. No one is saying there's time. Yeah, exactly. Exactly, David. So you agree. We can know certain things about the either beginning of the universe or the state directly prior to the beginning of the universe. But this is good. This is progression, because before you were saying something ridiculous like that the universe might be infinite, or that everything might be timeless. Yeah, Brandon, you're done, brother. You're done. Circular reasoning cannot be argued with. If you decide that your circle, this is what Brandon does. Let me show you what Brandon does. Brandon says, there is no God. Therefore, there is no God. And because there's no God, there is no God. This is what Brandon's arguments look like. We don't agree because you asserted that time and matter, etc., exists. So how could it not exist before the Big Bang or something to that effect? What? We don't agree because you asserted that time and matter, etc., exists. Well, yeah, I think you agree that time and matter exist. So how could it not exist before the Big Bang or something to that effect? But isn't that exactly what the Big Bang tells us? I thought that time and space and matter were, if not created, then at least unpacked by the Big Bang. No. I was saying if the Big Bang happened and created time and matter, not how could that be because time and matter. I'm saying they could not have existed if they were created at a certain point. So if time and matter are created here, and then the Big Bang happens like this, then whatever's out here cannot have time and matter because it didn't even exist until this point here. Does that make sense? I might have misspoke. But do you get this point? That, like, if this is the actual creative point of time and matter, right here, then that stuff can't be out here. All right, forget the loaded language, Brandon. You're on one today. You got to... All right, yeah. I understand you guys don't really like thinking about this, so I get it. I do understand. But I do think we can know things about these events. We can just deduce. It's not like you know. It's not like I know, right? It's just that I'm using the evidence and chains of logic to infer the best conclusion, the most accurate conclusion from the evidence that I have. And I know you guys hate when I use the word evidence, even though it is evidence, but from the information, from the data that we have, what is the inference to the best conclusion? And that's what I'm talking about. No, I know, David. I'm not trying to assume nothing. And I know you guys like having the conversation. I just know... I guess I'm really reacting to Brandon's energy right now, which is on me. I should be more patient. But, yeah. So that's what I'm talking about here. So if matter and space and time start here and then, develop and fill up our observable universe, the question is, what could possibly be the nature of all of this? And if matter and energy truly start here, then they can't be out here because they started here. They started here. Does that make sense? Put on the show of a lifetime. Yeah, I'll see you in hell, Brandon. I'll see you there. I don't think so. I think we'll both meet in heaven. Kind of like drawing. I should have been an artist. I should have been a painter. Well, I'm so bad at drawing. Oh, I should do that. This is the timeline. That's sick. This is where Brandon's going. Yeah. Well, at least you'll be there by choice, Brandon. At least you'll be there by choice. Okay. What should we do? Finish this video?
The person in seat number 7 on the first bus goes to room number 3 to the 7th power, or room number
really a modern artist.
2187. This continues for all of the first bus. The passengers on the second bus are assigned powers of the next prime, 5. The following bus, powers of 7. Each bus follows powers of 11, powers of 13, powers of 17, etc. Since each of these numbers only has 1 and the natural number powers of their prime number base as factors, there are no overlapping room numbers. All the bus's passengers fan out into rooms using unique room assignment schemes based on unique prime numbers. In this way, the night manager can accommodate every passenger on every bus, although there will be many rooms that go unfilled, like room 6, since 6 is not a power of any prime number. Luckily, his bosses weren't very good in math, so his job is safe. The night manager's strategies are only possible because while the infinite hotel is certainly a logistical nightmare, it only deals with the lowest level of infinity, namely...
I like Brandon's comment, guys. This guy's only nice to people so his soul doesn't go to hell. What a pussy. At least I'm nice to people. At least I'm nice to people, Brandon. Except for you. But... No, there's other reasons, of course, to be nice. Like, there's evolutionary reasons. There's biological reasons. There's social reasons. But it does help to have a metaphysical reason. That makes you really nice. That tends to make people nicer than the other ones.
The countable infinity of the natural numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Georg Cantor called this level of infinity Aleph 0. We use natural numbers for the room numbers as well as the seat numbers on the buses. If we were dealing with higher orders of infinity, such as that of the real numbers, these structured strategies would no longer be possible, as we have no way to systematically include every number. The real number infinite hotel has negative number rooms in the basement, fractional rooms, so the guy in room 1/2 always suspects he has less room than the guy in room 1. Square root rooms, like room radical 2, and room pi, where the guests expect free dessert. What self-respecting night manager would ever want to work there, even for an infinite salary? But over at Hilbert's Infinite Hotel, where there's never any vacancy and always room for more, the scenarios faced by the ever-diligent and maybe too hospitable night manager serve to remind us of just how hard it is for our relatively finite minds to grasp a concept as large as infinity. Maybe you can help tackle these problems after a good night's sleep, but honestly, we might need you to change rooms at 2 a.m.
Comic Brandon. You're such a good little communist, Comic Brandon. You are such a good little communist. Why do all religion boys have rage issues? Not all of them, just me. I'm nice to people who are not deceptive. Okay, fair enough. I'm nice to people I will never know who will never help me for no reason. Well, that's good. Seems like you've got a Christian heart, if that's the case. David's on the phone with a client, and I'm not nice sometimes because I don't give a fuck what any of you cowards think of me, because being kind is a top-down message meant to quell dissent. You're a good little communist, Brandon. If one is not educated to stand up for their rights, how could they ever stand up for them? Just bow to God who wants you to bow to your husband. Anything outside of normal should be avoided and shunned. Jailed. Yep. Very good straw man, Brandon. You're skilled at making a straw man argument of a religion that nobody believes in. I'll give you that. You are very skilled at asserting what others believe with absolutely no evidence or proof or any sort of like perspective on what they actually believe. But I'm glad we're getting to know you a little bit, Brandon. That's good. Yeah. Yeah. I would be sad too if I were a good little communist like Brandon. All right, guys. I think we've had our fun. I think we've gotten pretty much where we're going today. So it turns out it was more like 50-50. Like half you guys actually don't believe in metaphysical things. It's very interesting. Oh, what happened? Okay, it looks like I'm kind of back. All right, guys, I did want to say bye in person, but thank you for watching. Peace, good luck. We'll be back next week. No more content violations. We'll try not to do that. But I'm still going to log off and wish you guys a very happy weekend. And, yeah, hope you guys get up to some fun and come back next week to join, and it'll be awesome. All right, peace.